Welcome back to another episode of Bitfinex Talks. I'm your host, Ricardo Martinez. Today, I have a very special guest. I'm joined by Michelle Weekley of Byte Federal. Michelle, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Ricardo. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here and to see you again. I'm great.
Yeah, it's been a minute. I think the last time we saw each other was in November at Adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador, correct?
It was. It's a shame we're not both in El Salvador again right now, but yeah. Just a few months ago. It seems like, I guess it was last year, but.
I actually went back in February with my wife for vacation for a few days. So we were there.
Cool. I was there in January. So I have also been back and I hope to be spending more time there. So.
Cool. Well, Michelle, the reason I brought you on is because I wanted to talk about Byte Federal and what you guys are doing. For the people that don't know what Byte Federal is, do you want to give them a quick rundown?
Yeah, absolutely. So Byte Federal is one of the ATM companies in the United States. It was one of the first ones. We are not the largest. There are a few large ones, but I think that we're the most solid. So we really, at the core, are a software development company. We write all of the code that runs all of our products. And so from day one, that's the code that's been running on the machines. We assemble the machines, we maintain the networks, everything is done in-house. So, depending on how much you know about the hardware, the software, kind of the full spectrum, it's quite an accomplishment. So I came on about almost a year ago now as the director of product development there, and I'm helping to lead development of additional products outside of the ATM network, which is still our core business. We're based in the United States. We have expanded currently to El Salvador, to Australia. We are currently looking, obviously, at El Salvador, and we also just got licensed in Dubai. So we're kind of looking everywhere. We have a non-custodial wallet that we're still kind of fleshing out. And of course, we just launched full-scale point-of-sale merchant system. I think that merchant system was in beta testing when I saw you last year in November. We think we've hammered out most of the bugs and that we've really developed a core functionality there. And we're super excited to launch that. It is available globally, subject, of course, to country by country regulation. And if you're in the United States, it's state by state. But that is a non-custodial merchant solution. And there's an advanced program as well that provides a whole bunch of additional analytics, product tracking, all sorts of additional features that merchants use or will be able to use. So we're really excited about that. And our marketing team did a badass promo video. If you haven't seen that, I posted it on Twitter yesterday.
Okay, no, I haven't seen that actually. So I'll be sure to take a look at that. When are you guys planning on launching the point of sale system?
So it's live. We have launched it. It's kind of a slow roll in the way that everything in Bitcoin and the crypto space, in the sense that you're constantly dealing with regulation. The laws are always changing, the interpretation. So, the product, of course, is subject, like I said, to regulation wherever you are. And that can, unfortunately, make it kind of complicated. But it is live. It's a really great non-custodial solution that provides analytics to your business.
Cool. And what's the response been so far from merchants? Have you guys seen a lot of interest around the product?
Yeah, there's a ton of interest. Merchants are really, really fed up with the legacy system. The complaints there are endless. I think the same way that we as individuals are tired of dealing with, all of the nonsense in fiat world. So are the merchants. And it was, it's been a lot of fun to see the type of interest. I thought that a lot of small businesses would be most interested because, those are people who are really hammered the most by the regulation, the tax, the compliance issues. A 3% fee to a small business is obviously more significant than somebody bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. But there are a lot of really large players that have been super interested straight out of the gate. There's a lot of interest from the real estate industry, and we've got some pretty significant partnerships that we're looking at, and the interest has been more than we can handle, to be honest. So we're working on how to prioritize that. And then, of course, each industry has different requirements in terms of the features that they want and they prioritize. So we've only got so many devs, but we're prioritizing features as well as we're building.
And I assume this is not just on chain, but it's also a Lightning solution, since you guys are handling all sorts of payments.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything is Lightning enabled. Last year, we actually enabled all of our ATMs for Lightning transactions, which is super cool. But more importantly, of course, the merchant system. We've got a physical point of sale terminal for, retail locations, and then an online payment gateway and a number of e-commerce tools. And that is all Lightning enabled.
Do you guys support like the Bolt cards, those little like Lightning chargeable like debit cards that you can use to contactless pay?
We're working on it. So we had our own cards kind of quietly last year before Choke Point 2.0. We had our own cards. And so we'd like to roll those back out, and we'd like to be as compatible with everybody else in the ecosystem as possible. We do have NFC that's built into the terminals. So yeah, we're working on all those integrations.
Okay, cool. And then I want to shift gears a bit back to the ATM side of the business. Currently, like, how many machines are you guys operating? And I know you mentioned like some jurisdictions outside of the US that you're looking into, but like, where are you operating within the United States? And then are you actually operating outside of the United States?
Yeah, so we have, I believe we're at about 1,500 machines right now. We were at our peak at almost double that, but we had to pull back. Right now, I think we have about 1,500 machines out there, and we're constantly deploying more machines, pulling them back. It's a game of keeping everything balanced. You have to deal with, in the United States, is a really significant challenge dealing with the regulation because it's state by state. So we're working on money transmission licenses where those are required, and all kinds of licensing issues that have come up, in particular since Choke Point 2.0. But we are in, I believe, 35 states. And
Wow.
yeah, so we've got our primary network is here in the United States now. We do have, I think we have 21 machines in Australia. So that's an interesting place to be right now. And we're going to be deploying in Dubai next.
What's the demand like, I guess? Obviously you have a lot more machines in the US, so maybe it's kind of biased, but like, what's the demand like in the US, and how does it compare to the demand you guys are seeing in Australia?
They're really different markets. The demand in the United States, it's interesting. People ask me like, well, why do people use ATMs? And I think people use ATMs for all kinds of reasons, but our number one segment user is an older people, but older women in particular. And I like to think of them as these old ladies that would otherwise have like cash stuffed under their mattress. And so, I think the ATM for them provides like a physical interaction. There are people that are maybe less comfortable doing everything on the phone, connecting the bank account to the phone, and sort of moving significant amounts of money around without ever touching it. Even writing a check physically creates some sort of like real world interaction. So an ATM might not be the best solution for people like you or I, who can get a better cost basis and less fees by whizzing it all around on our phone. But there are a lot of people who still function or deal in cash, and they want to be able to buy Bitcoin with cash. Australia's been very different. There's a lot of interest in Australia things are moving very rapidly there. I don't know how much you've seen about sort of the crackdown on cash there, but there's a huge pushback against that. So Australia is trying really hard to eliminate cash entirely, and people aren't happy about it. So the guys, the team that we have over there is working really hard to help lead the fight against the cashless society. There's a lot of talk about a CBDC, and I think it kind of loses the plot, because a CBDC is not necessary if they can successfully eliminate cash from society. Then you already have a digital dollar or a digital currency. They don't need an actual CBDC. So I am becoming more and more of a cash advocate the further along we get into this regulatory attack.
Yeah, that's a trend I expect to continue. There seems to be like a global coordinated effort to kind of phase out cash and put in these like kind of oversights and controls and restrictions on how someone can use their own money. So
Absolutely.
I totally agree with you on supporting cash, using cash as much as possible, and trying to push back against that trend. The good thing is, like in Nigeria, like where they first tried to do this, like
Right.
I don't know if you saw that they were like
Yeah.
limiting the amount of cash people could take out of ATMs in order
Yep.
to try to push them into the CBDC. It was a total failure. So hopefully
Yeah.
we can just expect it to flop as more and more people become aware of the amount of freedom that they're losing from
Yeah.
not having cash.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a great case study. I was glad to see that. And I'm always trying to warn people. We've talked about this. It's interesting watching the headlines. Of course, I'm in the US, so it's like we get, but all the headlines in Australia would have you believe that their anti-cash push is really desirable. It's just what the people want, and also really successful. And that to me feels very much like propaganda, because we have a team on the ground there. And of course, it's the complete opposite. Nobody wants it. Most people don't want it, I should say. And it's not been that successful. So I am constantly trying to remind people to speak up and talk to people in your life about this, because these global initiatives, they are not popular. And if we refuse to accept them, then ultimately they will fail.
Yeah, hopefully people en masse choose to refuse to accept them. One thing that you said that struck me as kind of interesting is that you guys were looking into El Salvador. And my last podcast, I interviewed someone from a different Bitcoin ATM company, Peter Bacina. He has a company called Tech that's based in Panama. And I was asking him about like other markets that they were looking into. And he told me that because Chivo has so many ATMs, like one on every street corner, basically in El Salvador, that there's not a lot of room for competition. So I was just wondering to get your opinion on that. Do you guys see El Salvador as a viable market still?
Well, what I will say is I don't remember seeing that many Chivo ATMs. My understanding is, and to be clear, we don't see El Salvador as like a huge, we're not looking to take 100 ATMs there. We're looking to establish a base there, because we want to support the country, we want to support the initiative and what they're doing, and also because I think things are really changing down across all of Latin America. We've got a lot of guys on our dev team from across the global south, particularly Argentina, and I think that El Salvador is kind of the best first place to, if you're looking at expansion down there. Chivo, it's my understanding, and of course I could be wrong, but it's my understanding that Chivo is meant to be like sort of the base level, like free product, but that El Salvador in general is really excited to attract private competition. And that they're not really looking to develop the Chivo products to be like a 5-star experience. They just want to facilitate sort of this base layer of need, and that they're really welcome and excited about the private sector coming in and sort of competing and providing more tools and resources to everybody that's living down there.
I've also heard from friends of mine that are in El Salvador and that live there, that Chivo is not the most reliable option and that it's not the most popular either. So, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
there is plenty of room for another entry into the market. You mentioned Argentina. There's obviously the thing going on with Milei where he's a libertarian. He's trying to open up the market to foreign investment and stuff like that.
Mhm.
How do you see Argentina as like a possibility for launching ATM machines or even your POS product?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Argentina. It's obviously a much bigger country. Um, there's, there's a lot of FUD and drama going on about what's happening. But it's interesting, again, to watch sort of what gets put out through the headlines and then what we hear from our guys that are from Argentina, have family on the ground there and sort of have maybe more reliable sources for information. Um, and it's interesting, obviously, to watch the reaction. I think there's a misconception that Milei was a huge, prominent Bitcoin advocate. Ultimately, I believe that he is a free market advocate. And so, what they're trying to do down there is dollarize, first and foremost, to dollarize, and then also allow Bitcoin and I believe possibly a other digital currency. I don't know that they're going to go Bitcoin only. I think at least a stable coin. But he's a free market advocate more than anything. And I think that's awesome. I think it's disheartening to me to see everybody like shitting on him. Like free market is what we want. And we want to win in a free market. We don't want to win in a place where they're saying, like, well, you're only allowed to do this and that. Like, how is that not just recreating the current fiat structure? I mean, give me a free market and let me provide the best service and the best asset. And then we will have really won.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that like maximalism is kind of counterproductive because I believe in like the competition of currencies. And if there's something that's better than Bitcoin and it wins, then I mean, I'll use that. I wanted to take it back to the stablecoin comment that you made. The stablecoin usage in Argentina is incredible.
It's
There's
significant.
a
Yeah.
ton of people that are working for foreign companies and receiving their wages in stable coins.
Right.
And the whole time I was there in September of last year,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to just pay with everything in USDT, which
Yeah.
was incredible to me. The other question I guess I had for you about Byte Federal, the ATM machines in particular, is are you guys Bitcoin only ATM machines or do you also offer other currencies?
We are not Bitcoin only right now. We support a couple of additional coins. Um, we do have, you can buy Ethereum at the ATMs. Other than that, all of the coins are proof of work coins. So, there's obviously a lot of opinions about that. And I myself am a Bitcoin only. Like I'm a Bitcoin maxi. We've talked about this. And most of Byte Federal is comprised of Bitcoin only people. Um, we've got a couple really hardcore free market advocates who are not quite ready to say, you can't buy anything else if you want to. And I came in, I think, feeling very strongly. And I think as I have learned more and more about what it's like to actually try and do business in this space, my opinion has really evolved. And I think ultimately, I don't, this is kind of a hot take, and I don't think that it should be, but I think there's a lot of energy being wasted with the infighting. And the energy needs to be focused on fighting the governments. If people want to buy their altcoins, let them. Like, I'm not. You don't have to. Like I know you're you're not really a maxi, and that's okay. Like, we can still be friends. Our ATMs are not Bitcoin only. I will say that currently the merchant product is Bitcoin and Lightning only. We do have the ability ultimately built where if somebody wanted to accept another currency, especially USDT in some of the worldwide markets, which I think there's going to be, we know there's a significant demand for, right? So currently the merchant product is really focused on Bitcoin and Lightning, and we wanted to nail that product before expanding. But you know, I do see, I mean, USDT will be coming soon because there's a significant amount of demand for it. So
yeah, there certainly is. Do you offer a stable coin of any kind on the machines? And then like with the other currencies, like how does the demand stack up? Is it like 90% Bitcoin purchases, or are people actually
yeah.
buying these other coins as well?
No, it really is primarily Bitcoin. You know, most of the demand is for Bitcoin, and so that's where we focus our resources. Certainly, my resources are entirely focused on Bitcoin, but we do, you know, we've been around since 2017, and I think things were different then. You know, things have evolved, and we're evolving. But there are not currently any stable coins. So we did have a broader range of coins that were available prior to the Choke Point 2.0 crackdown and the SEC lawsuits in the US. But anything that is on that SEC lawsuit that they're going after, we are not supporting at this time. So
Like, what's your opinion as an insider in the industry on the current state of like regulation in the United States for Bitcoin ATMs?
well, I wouldn't say that it's specifically for ATMs. I would actually say for Bitcoin, um, as the industry larger. And I know this is really black pilled, but it's not good. Um, you know, it's not good. I'm hoping we'll see what happens with the elections here in November. And that's not to say that I think, you know, anyone is going to come in and save us or break us free. But I think we've got, you know, trends that started with the last administration that came in, and those trends are not good. And I'm hoping for things to change so that we can at least slow those trends down, if not reverse them. But the US, I think if things stay on track the way that they are, the US is probably going to regulate itself out of existence. And I'm gonna say it, you know, I've had a lot when I do these posts about regulation, I always get comments and DMs, and people come at me like really genuinely, like, I only hold Bitcoin, so I'm okay, right? And it's like, no, the US does not make any distinction for Bitcoin. It has been ruled a commodity by the CFTC, but all of the other regulatory bodies that actually make and enforce the rules and regulation, they don't distinguish Bitcoin separately. Do I hope that that would happen and you know, at least we have Bitcoin? Yes, but in terms of being an insider and based on what I'm seeing, like, that is not happening. These people don't understand the distinction, and they don't care to. So, you know, I think we need to fight really hard against the regulation that's happening, and we can't just like ostrich ourselves, you know, put the head in the sand and say like, oh, we're safe because we're only facilitating Bitcoin or we're only buying Bitcoin. They're coming after all of it.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Like if the regulations were to become, I guess, prohibitive for operation, would you guys consider moving to like a more friendly jurisdiction such as El Salvador or somewhere else?
Well, I will say we're not expanding globally for no reason. Um, you know, we love the United States. We have a very significant and robust network here that we hope to maintain for as long as there is demand. And I really genuinely hope that that is not interrupted or shut down. I mean, that obviously, would have a ton of ramifications. Not only all of our employees and their families, but that would be, an industry-wide, a country-wide catastrophe, really. But you can't be ignorant to the fact that there is a significant threat there. And so I think we're looking to diversify for that reason. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think like the regulatory uncertainty in the US is kind of detrimental to the global market as well, because so many other places base their regulations off what the US or what the EU is doing. The EU recently has put out like MiCA or whatever, which is definitive regulatory guidelines, whereas the US is still kind of up in the air. Nobody really knows what's going on for sure. And to me, I think it's kind of like set the industry back, that the regulatory bodies within the US cannot agree on how to treat digital assets.
Absolutely. The US has ruled or regulated so far by enforcement. We ourselves, as Byte Federal, we have a massive legal and compliance team. We pride ourselves on having done everything very, very compliantly from the beginning, just because that's the only way really to stay in business. And there are so many things that we have gone to ask for clarification on and just been shut down entirely. And it's not, of course, a Byte Federal thing. I mean, you see this happening all over. Coinbase had asked for guidance on a number of things, and the US just refuses to provide it. And that, that's kind of a whole conversation in and of itself. But I agree that it has terrible, terrible ramifications globally. What's happening in the EU is a disaster. And I hope to see what's happening there reverse. But unfortunately, I think, if you ask me, ultimately, we're going to have, there's already a significant divide, right? You have the globalist countries with their globalist leaders that are all sort of following these Agenda 2030, DEI, ESG, like all of your alphabet things. And they all obviously are not fans of Bitcoin or crypto. And so they're creating these draconian rules while they try to keep their grips on the control that they have, which has primarily been because they control the dollar. But then you see other regions, Latin America, whether you like Milei or not, he's certainly pushing the envelope. He's doing things. He's anti-Federal Reserve. El Salvador, there's lots going on in the UAE. We see Qatar going down and meeting with El Salvador. I think most of the Middle East and all of their money is really interested in what's happening with Bitcoin. And I'm excited to watch that. So I think it could really lead, it being the way that countries choose to regulate or not regulate Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, could ultimately define the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years of geopolitics. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch play out.
I think so too. With Bukele, like, first of all, him being the first to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender for his country was kind of controversial. The timing of when they began buying Bitcoin, obviously they bought at the top of the last bull run and then had to hold throughout the bear market. But that whole time, like, the press was criticizing the strategy and giving him a very negative light, like in the media and all that. But I think kind of the results now are undeniable. So I'm really interested to see what other smaller countries that maybe have a little bit more freedom to implement their own policies may follow in his footsteps. And if that happens, then you're right, we may see a divide of like the emerging economies and then the West of developed economies, and two different levels of freedom internationally.
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately, I'm not sure that the United States is going to continue to be the freest place on the planet. It has been for a long time, and maybe it can be saved. I hope it can be saved. But I don't know. I think if you fast forward 50 years, the world may look very, very different.
Yeah, I can see that too. Michelle, we're running out of time here. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to let the audience know about Byte Federal and what you guys are doing this year?
Just follow us. You can follow Byte Federal on Twitter. They're not as active. We are really busy building, and so we like to build and then announce versus announce and then build. But yeah, follow along with what we're doing. Follow me, follow Byte Federal. We will be in Dubai soon. Like I said, we are licensed there now. And so, especially if you're over there, hit me up. I've got some friends from back in the day when I lived over there. And, just hit us up, follow us, support us, and let us know also, like, ultimately what your needs are. We're seeing, like I said, the needs across different industries varying really significantly. And so, all the feedback that we've gotten from merchants while we were beta testing was super helpful. And I encourage people to continue to give feedback as we see more and more merchants using the product. And if you're interested, DM me or DM Byte Federal, and we're happy to get you set up and running.
Okay, awesome. And then how soon can people be on the lookout for the wallet that you mentioned?
So the wallet is available. You can download it now in the iTunes and the Google Play Store. We, unfortunately, like most people, lost a lot of the functionality. We did have full banking in there, and we had to turn that off because of Choke Point 2.0. So we've taken the time to kind of, it's been fully rebranded, and there are a few things that we're still sort of hammering out to perfect it. So I haven't been like promoting it heavily, but if you're interested, you can absolutely check it out and just give us a little more time to perfect the functionality in there. But it's Bitcoin, and these things are always being built. We're kind of building it as we go. You know what I mean? So yeah.
And then I guess for merchants, if
Mhm.
they're interested in onboarding to the point of sale system, how could they do so?
So you can do that directly on the website, which is just bytefederal.com. There's a merchant section there. And you can also reach out to us at merchant@bytefederal.com if you have any questions.
Amazing. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show and answering all my questions.
Absolutely. It was great to catch up with you, and I hope to see you again soon somewhere. I'm sure we will.
Yeah, I'll be in El Salvador probably for adopting again. So
Yeah,
if you're going to be there, we'll see each other. And then I don't know, maybe some other conferences in between.
for sure. For
We'll
sure.
do
I
it.
will see you there at adopting, if not before.
Okay, cool.